So it's deadlift day. You're excited. You're gonna pull a new 1 rep max on your second warm-up set with like 185. You tweak your back and it feels like the worst thing in the world and you can't move. Hey everybody, my name's Dr. Michael Mash and I'm gonna show you exactly how to overcome one of these dreaded lifters' low back tweaks. Before we get started, make sure you subscribe to this channel. That way you'll know when I post new videos just like this one. Today we're gonna talk about how to overcome the dreaded lifter's low back tweak. If you're somebody who barbell trains, the odds that you're gonna experience this sometime in your career are extremely high. So likely that it's almost human to experience back pain because it's just so common. I wanna arm you with the knowledge for how to overcome this and how to permanently get back to lifting pain-free. So, in order to do this, the first thing you're gonna wanna do is to calm down and don't panic. When you tweak your back, whether it's on a warm-up set or on a 1 rep max, when you're in that moment, it feels like the worst thing in the world because everything locks up and you can't move at all. It's a terrible feeling. I've gone through it multiple times, and if you're a barbell athlete and you're watching this, you've probably gone through it before, but step one, don't panic. Do a quick red flag screen. This is to make sure that nothing serious is going on, and the odds of something serious going on are pretty low. Make sure you haven't lost control of bowel and bladder. Make sure that you haven't lost motor control or movement or feeling in your legs. If you haven't lost movement, feeling, or bowel and bladder, the odds that this back tweak is something serious that requires immediate medical attention is very, very low. Do a quick red flag screen and then try not to panic. That's step one. Step two, you need to make a decision if you can continue with that lift. You need to make a decision for that day. Can I continue deadlifting? The decision to do that is going to be based on how you're feeling. Number one recommendation, when you tweak your back, unless you're in a powerlifting competition that day and you need to perform on the platform, do not work up to your scheduled 1 rep max. If you tweaked your back, see if you can continue the movement itself at a much lower intensity. Maybe you just use a warm-up weight for that day. Basically, you're trying to find if you can tolerably do that lift that you tweaked your back on that day. If you can find an intensity and a rep scheme that is tolerable for you, go ahead. Continue training that lift for the day. On the other hand, if the movement itself, like the hip hinge, is so sensitized that you can't even bend forward a little bit to even get down to the bar, then just scrap the lift for that day. Here's the thing, guys. When we're training for strength, and barbell training in general is a lifelong endeavor. Just because you tweaked your back one day and you have to skip deadlifts for one day is not going to impair you on your lifelong journey. It is one drop in the bucket. If you can't deadlift for one day, everything's going to be okay. So if the movement is so sensitized that you can't even go through it, skip that movement altogether and then continue the rest of the workout and see what you can do. Maybe you had reverse lunges or some sort of lunge variation following your deadlifts. See if you can go through that, and then you'll just, for the rest of the day, see what you can do. The key is not necessarily pain-free, the key is tolerable for that day. So, step two, decide if you can actually do the lift. Step three, here's how we're gonna rapidly overcome it. When you tweak your back, and like I said, it feels like the worst thing in the entire world when you're in it, you gotta do a little bit of movement exploration to see which movements are painful or sensitized. So quite often, when you tweak your back on the deadlift, you may be sensitized in flexion, which means you're gonna feel like you can't bend forward even a little bit. The second you bend forward, it says, nope, can't do it. So that would be somebody who's sensitized in flexion. But for people that are sensitized in flexion, often it feels really good to bend backwards. So if that's the case, if you're sensitized in flexion, can't bend forward, but it feels really, really good to bend backwards, you're just gonna do a bunch of backwards bending through the day. Maybe 10 reps every hour, or 10 reps when you think about it. You can do this by just standing up and bending backwards, or you can lay on your stomach and do what's called a prone press up, and then just keeping your hips down on the ground, arch your back and bend upwards. So the whole idea here is find which movement is sensitized, temporarily avoid it, and then whatever movements feel good, do them a lot. That's the name of the game, because right now you need to bombard your brain and your body with a healthy stimulus. and healthy movement. Movement that your brain perceives as healthy. So whatever that movement may be, you do it a lot. Maybe it hurts to bend backwards, but it feels really good to bend forward. So in that case, you're just going to do a bunch of forward bends. Maybe you're sitting down, bending forward to touch your toes throughout the day, or maybe you're kneeling on all fours and rocking your butt back to your heels. Regardless, again, name of the game, when you tweak your back, usually it's one movement that hurts really, really, really bad. And it might be intuitive to think, oh boy, I can't bend this certain way. I better stretch through it or else I'm going to lose it. That's not the case here. That's probably one of the biggest mistakes I see with a back tweak is people try and force a painful sensitized movement too early. The idea is leave it alone. I know it feels like it needs stretched, but it doesn't right now. Just let it calm down and do a lot of movements that feel good. So that's step 3. Step 4, you can't avoid painful movements forever. This is where people also mess up. Maybe they tweak their back and it hurts to flex. So now they may say, oh, I'm never going to do spinal flexion again. It's bad for me. Wrong idea here, guys. What you need to do is while you're temporarily avoiding spinal flexion, once it calms down and it becomes tolerable again, you need to slowly reintegrate it in order to restore that movement pattern. No movement should be off limits for life. Movements can become temporarily sensitized, but you should start to work on restoring them in order to desensitize them once the acute phase is over. So, step 4, slowly reintegrate the movement pattern, or slowly reintegrate the movement that was once sensitized. When you're ready to add the deadlift back in, please don't start at your 1 rep max that you tweaked your back on. Slowly work on building up a chronic workload, keep the weight really light in the beginning, maybe we're talking RPE 4 or 5 in the beginning. Give your body practice of that movement again and slowly work back up to the weight that you were at. That's another mistake people make, trying to jump right back in the game after the back tweak. Again, zoom out, realize that you're training for life. And if it takes a couple weeks to get over a back tweak, and if that means temporarily deloading your deadlift, so be it. You don't want to get caught in this vicious cycle of, I tweak my back, I rest, I feel good, so then I hit it hard again. Only to do what? Then I tweak my back again, I rest, and then I hit it hard again. People get caught in this vicious cycle for years. Again, zoom out. Just because you can't go heavy for a couple weeks while you let that back tweak calm down doesn't mean it's the end of the world. So, step 1, don't panic when you get a back tweak. Rule out your red flags. Step 2, decide if you can complete the lift at a lower intensity. Step 3, continue to do movements that feel good and temporarily avoid movements that hurt. And then step 4, slowly reintegrate the once painful movement pattern. That's how you overcome the dreaded lifter's low back tweak as quickly as possible. Thanks guys. If you enjoyed watching this video, again, make sure to subscribe so you get notified when I post another one, and then I will see you next time.